Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you're new here. Today's video is going to be my December wrap up, so happy new year because it is indeed January. I feel like I can't get this year started without filming this video. This is actually my November and December wrap up, so that's probably the reason why I feel like I'm halted in 2022 as long as this video is not filmed and posted. It's finally here. I read 3 books in November and I read 2 books in December, so I thought it would make more sense to combine the 2 months instead of have like tiny little wrap up. I wouldn't have even bothered with the December wrap up, I don't think, if I hadn't like delayed my November one. So there are reasons for why I only read those amounts of books. I did read a lot of thick books, and I also started a job in kind of middle end of November, which meant that just like getting the time to read was virtually impossible. So I'm pleased with how much I managed to read. Did beat my Goodreads goals and everything like that, so there's no pressure on myself to absolutely like, squeeze a lot of books into the month of December like usual. But yeah, without further ado, let's go on to the video. I also did want to disclaim the fact that my brother's fiance gave us an Alexa for Christmas, which is a lovely gift, except for the fact that my little brother is like experimenting with it downstairs. So if you hear some random beats or him screaming at the Alexa, that'll explain it. Nothing else is happening in this house, don't worry. My fringe is currently too long and it's absolutely driving me insane, so I'm tempted to part it, but it looks so dumb, doesn't it? I actually like never experienced so much pain as I do with my fringe as when I'm filming a video, I swear. I think it's because I'm like constantly staring at it. Probably like, thank goodness there's no mirrors in real life that I can just be staring at all the time, because I'd be freaking out about my fringe constantly. This all have to do, it's very strangely on my forehead. Okay, so the very first book I read in November was Unravel Me by Tahereh Mafi. So this is the second official book in the Chateau series. It was a little bit of a tricky one to read and rate. I'll explain that bit first. So basically, I read Chateau when I was a lot younger. It was a few years ago now, I think 2019, 2018 time. And I gave the book 5 stars because I did like a video where I went through my annotations with you guys, which I'll have linked up here and down below and everything. As I was doing that video, I was looking through my annotations and I was like, I actually don't feel the same way as I do then, even though it was like only a few years ago. I feel like a lot has changed in that time, and also a lot has changed personally in that time. The age I am, I've naturally grown up because it's been like across my the very early part of my 20s. The rating I have for Chateau is kind of one that I'm like putting, like we're just gonna ignore that. So I'm gonna pretend I gave Chateau about a 4 stars because I think that's probably as high as it would have gone. Then I gave the little novella in between Chateau and Unravel Me 3 stars. That was a really good book, really solid, gave you lots of good information. I really recommend reading the novellas in the series. And then I picked up Unravel Me, which I gave a 3.5 stars. What I found more so in this book that I didn't find in the first Chateau book was just how annoying Juliet is, our main character, particularly her infatuation with Adam, who's this guy who she like literally lives and dies for. Like I know they've had a lot to bond over, but like they're like 17. I just, you know, it's a little bit insufferable. A lot of Unravel Me was Juliet and Adam, and I feel like that really like took the stars off. But the parts of which we got of Warner, who's the other love interest, it's like a love triangle kind of thing, loved it. He's such like a superior character, and Tahereh Mafi wrote him like 10 times better than she did the other characters, which is just insane to me. Like I don't understand how that's happened. Like she has this character with like incredible character development, great past, really fleshed out, and then she has these other characters who are just like either insufferable or one-dimensional. It's a very like difficult series to kind of make my mind up about, but it is a quick read. It is like a very fast-paced book. These are YA, of course. That's the reason I feel like my ratings are not like consistent through this series. Basically the whole thing with this is that when you're reading a series, you ideally don't want to be leaving like a massive gap in between books, and that's what I did. But I'm hoping with the like rest of these books, I'm going to try and read them a bit closer together. I do own Ignite Me, which is the 3rd book, so as soon as I've read like the novella after this one, I'll pick up Unite Me, and it'll be like a little bit more Unite Me? Ignite Me. The titles. And it'll be a little bit more consistent. I should be a little bit more consistent. But yeah, I enjoyed this book. I liked the plot, and I liked Warner, and yes, I also love this cover. I think it's stunning. So that was my weird review of that book, but I'm just like, I just feel disillusioned by myself because of my previous rating of the first book. The next book I read in November was my first 5-star read of the entire year, and that was Normal People by Rooney. I did actually film an entire reading vlog about this book where I went through like in-depth thoughts before I was reading it, as I was reading it, and then after I was reading it, so I'm not going to go into massive depth here. I'll link that video up here and down below and everything, like I said. But I just kind of connected with this book on a completely different level from anything else I've basically ever read in my entire life, just because of how personal it felt to me and to my life. This book is one that gets like many mixed reviews. The in-depth kind of character study that it contains I felt was very realistic, as well as aligning with my own life. Was like a really well written example and insight into another like human being's life. Like once you've read this book, it's kind of crazy to reflect on it and be like, this was something that was entirely fictional and these characters don't really exist. I gave Conversation with Friends, her previous book, 3.5 stars or 3 stars, can't remember, I think it was 3.5. So I was not expecting to give this 5 stars, but I did think I would prefer it a little bit more. I definitely want to read Beautiful World, What Are You, and I'll make sure to do a vlog for that as well. I don't actually own the book yet, so as soon as I physically own it and can sit down and read it, then I will make sure to live that video for you. This book is just, it's a journey. Normal People just follows 2 people in their late teens, early 20s, and how their relationship kind of morphs and changes throughout school into university and kind of life after that, and what it looks like to kind of have a really intense changing relationship with someone. And then the final book that I read in November is a really exciting one because I finally finished Court of Silver Flames. So this is a massive book. It's 750 pages. My tabs stopped halfway because I haven't finished annotating it yet, but yeah, I finally finished this dang book. It's taken me way too long. I'm not going to tell you because it's kind of embarrassing, but I mean it's very embarrassing. But yeah, I finished it. I gave it 2.5 stars. Basically, like a good 60% of this book is smart. It's fine. I just skim it because I just don't care, you know. That's the problem with it. I don't have like a massive problem with reading it, but I really just don't care, so I'd rather just not be. And I know that's like my fault for reading Sarah J. Maas book, but usually her characters and her plot are so good that like the smart is kind of irrelevant. But in this one, there's so many like sex scenes, and it was just like about the physical that I just couldn't get engaged with. Our 2 main characters, like Cassian and Nesta, their relationship is kind of like enemies with benefits at the very beginning of this book, and kind of to like about the halfway point. That meant that their encounters in the bedroom were entirely physical, and there was nothing emotional there, and I just don't care, you know. So that definitely brought it down. I also felt that the character development that Nesta goes through was there, but it also wasn't there. It's a really difficult book to explain because it's just so epic in terms of like length and like, you know, like there's so much here, but there also felt like there was a lot missing. I can't really explain that any way better than I kind of am, even though I know that I'm doing like a terrible job at it. I just like don't think this trilogy is for me personally. It's kind of sad coming from the Avatar series, which is like literally my favorite ever trilogy, fantasy trilogy, or trilogy full stop. So I'm glad to finish this. Didn't love it. Yeah, I kind of don't have anything more to say. A lot of these books are quite hard to explain, or is that just an excuse? Anyways, I finished it. It's done. I kind of just want to like, and then forget about it for a little bit. Maybe that's the reason why I'm having trouble explaining it to you. I also found with this book, the very first like kind of fifth of it, really connecting with Nesta over the like kind of mental health, the journey she goes through, and I found that like very relatable, and I found it comforting to witness someone else like dealing with the same thing at the same time as me. The way she kind of recovered from that, I didn't feel was like true to the experience. And I know that lots of people like praise this book for its fantastic character development of Nesta and the growth they see within her, but I felt like herself at the end of this book was kind of this magic, like everything's better now, even though like she had addressed it. I don't know, this is so difficult to explain. I think we're just gonna move on. Basically, I read this. I gave it 2.5 stars. 2.5 is not terrible. It just means it was like a very like middle of the road. So I didn't love it, but I will be continuing the series. I don't regret the fact that I read this or anything like that. Okay, then we enter December, where I read 2 books. Had a little bit of a mixed reading month, but it was quite good actually, because the very first book that I read was The Idiot by Elif Batuman. So this book I gave a 5 out of 5 stars. My second 5-star book of the year. I can't tell whether I prefer this over Normal People or not, so do not try and ask me. They're very different books. This was like a happy 5 stars. Normal People was like a, they're just so different. Like the fact I connected with Normal People, I connected with this too, but Normal People was like, here's a mirror of your life, and then this one was like, here is what is beautiful and interesting and exciting and compelling about life. So that's how I feel about those two. Let's just stop comparing them. Okay, The Idiot is about this girl called Saleh. She's the daughter of Turkish immigrants, but she has lived in America her whole life. She goes to Harvard and she ends up there in a Russian class with this boy called Ivan, who is Hungarian, but again is like studying in America at Harvard, obviously. They meet in this class. They don't spend a lot of time in this class, but Selin is like kind of instantly drawn to Ivan, particularly kind of Ivan's communication and the way his brain works, less so than actually a full understanding of who he is as like an individual. They start this kind of email exchange while they're at the same university, but they're not seeing each other in person, and they kind of grow super attached to each other over these kind of intellectual conversations they're having. And Selin, of course, gets absolutely infatuated with Ivan, even though she doesn't really know him, like I've been trying to say this entire time. Everything that she does is affected by Ivan, and she can't kind of like cope with her day without having received a response from Ivan. This book is just like absolutely insane. Like, here's the way I'll describe this, okay? If you like The Secret History and you like those kind of extremely intellectual conversations they had in their class with Julian as a professor, you would really love this book, because this is like, this takes those but it like runs with it. So the entire book has those in it, and I particularly loved the first half of it when we're very much at Harvard before we go to Hungary to visit Ivan's family, and Selin does their whole course and everything. The discussions they have in class are just literally like you've been given like a ticket into a Harvard classroom. It's just so, it's so like engaging. It feels like it's feeding your brain, which is something that is like really lovely after I've been reading like a lot of kind of books that haven't been fully gripping me. That's why like I've only got these 2 5-stars this year, because like nothing's really fully held my attention, but these two, this particularly is what I'm going about. It felt kind of good for me, but also felt like enjoyable. And Selin, there was one night where I lay in bed at night and I was just like, Selin's not a real person. Like, what? That is insane. It actually just makes me uncomfortable, because she's so, I don't know, I feel sad not to be hearing about her anymore, because I am not reading this book anymore. There is a sequel to this book. It's called Either Or, but it's only out in hardcover, and I really want the US paperback, so I'm gonna have to wait till that releases. This was fantastic. It's a Pulitzer Prize finalist. Are you gonna argue with the Pulitzer Prize? No, didn't think so. If you give this book like an average rating, you just didn't get it, you know? Like, it's so good. I'm obviously totally kidding. I was gonna say that the way this is told is like across the course of 1 year of Selin's life, and it's her freshman year of Harvard. But within that, it's broken up by like paragraph gaps. So there's no proper chapters within this book, but it does mean that we can have moments like this, which is just one tiny paragraph, and it's just this like moment that happens in Selin's life, ever so slightly affects her, like changes her thought process, but it's so slight and mundane that it's something that you could totally just skim over and just move on with like the plot of the book. Like every single little paragraph is something you could dwell on further. It was just a masterpiece, basically. I love this book. It's fantastic. And then the very final book that I read in December, and the very final book that I read in 2022 was Throne of Glass by Sarah J Maas. So yes, we have another Sarah J Maas book, but I felt very differently about this book. This is the first book in an 8-part YA fantasy series. Things are just so different from the Avatar like extended series. It's a completely different tone. These were written like so many decades apart from each other. I was like slightly worried going into this that I was like, I've had this bad experience with the previous Sarah J Maas book that I read. Maybe I will be constantly like thinking of that as I'm reading this, but actually they felt like 2 totally different authors, and I really like this. I gave it 3.5 stars. I do think that there's much room for this series to improve. She did start writing this when she was 16, so I guess that makes sense. Putting this series on hold while I wait for the new US paperbacks, because I won't be able to find the rest of the series in this like original US paperback. So while I'm waiting, I'm gonna pause on this series. I did really enjoy it. I'm excited to pick it up, and I'm not like really disappointed I was not blown away or instantly hooked or anything like that, but I did enjoy every single second I spent reading this book. I just liked it instead of loved it. So Throne of Glass follows Selena. She's a really famous assassin. She's like the most famous assassin in the kind of kingdom that she lives within, and in the like little prequel book to this, The Assassin's Blade, she's captured at the very end of that and she's put in a prison. She's working in like a salt mine. In this book, the crown prince frees her, but only so that she can enter his father, the king's competition to find the king's assassin, which is the person who will be doing all the king's dirty work basically. So Selena enters the competition. It kind of runs similar to Hunger Games, like she's up against other participants. It's possible for her to die during the tasks. They're very dangerous, and the other people she's working with are very cutthroat because they're also all criminals and very skilled in killing / harming people. The rest of this plot is a bit of a journey, so I'm not going to go into it too much. Like, no one ever bothers to explain what this book is about, so I thought I'd give a little taste before letting you go into it a little bit blindly. So those were all the 5 books that I read in the months of November and December. I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed hearing my absolutely like garbled thoughts on all these books. If you did enjoy the video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe, because I'd love to have you here the new year. The next video that I film / post is going to be about all the books I read in 2022. So I'm going to be giving like kind of 1-line reviews for every single one and going through them all. So if you guys want to see that video, make sure you stick around, and I'll see you guys next time for that video. Bye.